What do freedom and firearms have in common? And how do they relate to peaceful Christianity? This is the voice of resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
Welcome to the program, friend. You're watching a 7-part series that we shot a little over a year ago on self-defense, firearms, the Second Amendment, history. If you like today's show and you think, oh, I wish I'd have caught some of the other ones, you can watch all of them online at our website, thevoiceofresistance.com. And again, I want to say that some of the material in this show may not be appropriate for small children. I leave it to your discernment as a parent, as a grandparent, to determine what your children or grandchildren are able to watch, what's age appropriate for them. There have been a lot of changes that have taken place in the last 50 years. We're going to discuss some of them in today's program. And interestingly, and somewhat troublingly, not too long ago, a poll was taken of average Americans from the entire political spectrum, and a significant minority of those that were polled felt that a revolution may need to happen in order to protect our civil liberties. I was stunned at the data. One of the things that could drive people to the breaking point would be if our federal government or any of our state governments tried to seize our firearms and tried to basically trample our God-given rights that are codified in the Second Amendment. We hope, we pray that that day never comes. But having recently seen what happened in Nevada with Cliven Bundy and his supporters and the armed federal agents that were taking his cows, friends, this discussion could not be more timely. I hope that you are encouraged and challenged and intellectually stimulated by this series. God bless you. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Voice of Resistance. We are the last of the Jedis, but there are others that we're training. Maybe you. All right. By the way, this will be the last show for the time being that we have out this lovely assortment of firearms. I want to say one thing, as I've said it before. Your freedom was purchased at the barrel of a gun, and it will be maintained at the barrel of a gun. Now, some of you watching this are like, oh, some of you are saying, yes, this is great. Why do we have such a divide in this country? Let me go over a couple of reasons why I think things are in such a mess. This program is seen largely on Christian television stations, others as well. And much of the evangelical Christian community and some of the Catholic community has been focused so much on spirituality, whether it's having a proper relationship with Christ and being devoted in your family, perhaps focusing on the faith movement, wanting prosperity, perhaps focusing on the next life. Whatever stream of spirituality you find yourself in, there has been a separation in many Christians' minds from our life with Christ and our life in this world as Christ's servants and ambassadors here on earth. In other words, a few days ago, I did a segment or two on what the scriptures have to say about your right to defend yourself and even to have guns or whatever type of weapon you want to defend yourself against tyranny and government. Most Christians don't think in terms of God's law applying to the things of this world, economics, socialism, education of children, and certainly not our right to self-defense. You've got to go to philosophers like Augustine to find really in-depth material on just war, on the right to self-defense, or to go to or go to Larry Pratt at Gun Owners of America. He's got some great material. So that's been one issue. Another issue is that we are caught up with bread and circuses. Now, as the stranglehold of the tax burden that we bear comes upon us, more and more of us are working more than one job. Many of our spouses have gone to work, and we're struggling for our daily bread. And as the dollar is deflated and deflated and deflated, and we see the price of our food go up, many of us are preoccupied with our bread. And then there's others of us that are distracted by our circuses, football, baseball, music videos, games, the Wii, all of these different electronic games that kids and adults have. We have become obsessed with entertainment, and that we've taken our eye off the ball. I mean, there's only so many hours in a day. I'm delighted that you're watching this show. My encouragement would be to turn off your TV as quickly as possible after I'm off the air, or your computer, and read good books. So these are some of the reasons why I think that we're in a mess. Another reason is because of just horrific education. The government schools have produced such horrifying results in our lives, in our minds, crippling the ability of people to reason or to think logically. I mean, we're politically correct. We know diversity. We've got tolerance, but we can't think ourselves out of a wet paper bag. Now, before we take our break, I'm going to read to you, to prove my point about education, I'm going to read to you a quote from George Washington and one from Thomas Jefferson. George Washington said, "A free people ought not only to be armed and disciplined, but they should have sufficient arms and ammunition to maintain a status of independence from anyone who might attempt to abuse them, which would include their own government." President Obama, Attorney General Holder, you can take this quote all the way to the hot place with you. You people are in defiance of the founding fathers of this country and the philosophy that gave birth to this country. Here's one from Thomas Jefferson. "No free man should ever be debarred the use of arms. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in government." I'm going to paint some scenarios when we come back from this break that are, I promise you, are going to be very disturbing to people. But you have to understand that what I'm about to tell you is in perfect keeping with the philosophy of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and the founders of this republic, that we must have a good supply of firearms and ammunition to protect ourselves from tyranny, from our own government if need be. I'm not afraid to say it. You need to not be afraid to say it either, because it's the truth. I'll be right back.
Hey, everyone's been asking me, when's Unstoppable coming out on DVD? Well, it's here. And I have created my own deluxe signature version of Unstoppable that contains not only the movie, but over 5 hours of additional curriculum and study guides for your family. It's perfect for your homeschool, educational facility, small group Bible study, and family devotions. And I'm going to share with you some of the spiritual warfare that surrounded the release of this film. This box set also includes extended scenes, new music videos, the inside scoop on the whole Facebook controversy. So what are you waiting for? I made this special version with my family in mind, and I know your family will be blessed by it too. Unstoppable 2.0 Deluxe Signature Version, available only here at kurtcameron.com. I can't wait for you to experience what's inside.
It took me 14 years to write it. 4 rewrites, countless edits. I poured my heart and soul into Dragon Slayers. At points, a very inspiring and painful book to write. I encourage you to go to our website and look at the reviews that we have gotten from readers of this book, and then avail yourself. It's an allegory, and I promise you, you'll be inspired. Welcome back to the Voice of Resistance, friend. I'm Randall Terry. I'm going to make some predictions. Some of you are going to think that these predictions are crazy. They involve what I believe is a certainty: coming convulsions, violence, possible assassinations. I'm going to talk very clearly, very forthrightly, without equivocation. But before I do, I want you to think about something, please. I was born in 1959. That makes me about 50 years old, all right? If someone had stood up when I was baptized or preaching at my mom and dad's wedding, a priest, a pastor, and said, I've had a vision. God showed me what America's going to look like over the next 50 years. We're going to have over 50 million babies killed, their bodies thrown in dumpsters and sewers, killed by abortion. We're going to have homosexuals parading in the streets, demanding the right to be married. And then one by one, states are going to cave in, and courts in the states are going to demand that homosexuals be allowed to be married. We're going to take prayer out of the school. We're going to take the Bible out of public school. But we're going to start distributing condoms inside of public schools so that teenagers can fornicate. Planned Parenthood is going to be in our schools teaching kids all kinds of different sexual practices. Go down through the list, people. Just keep going down the list of what is common today. If somebody had said those words in 1959, President Eisenhower in his 7th year, 14 years after the defeat of Nazi Germany, a priest or a pastor or a preacher would have been fired for saying the words I just said in mixed company. You couldn't talk about condom distribution in a church. You couldn't talk about it in mixed company. If you'd have talked about these sexual perversions, somebody would have thought, a priest would have been labeled as a lunatic by his bishop, probably stuck in a monastery. A preacher who was in a congregational church would have been voted out by the congregation. What was unspeakable in 1959 is now common. So I'm going to make some predictions in the next segment. Some people will think that these are crazy, that they're unspeakable, they're unthinkable. Maybe they are. But what is unthinkable and unspeakable today that will be commonplace 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now? Look at how far we have plummeted into the very jaws of hell as a nation. And then think through the trajectory of the path that we're on, especially if Obama plays himself out as the tyrant that he appears to be. I'll be right back with some predictions. Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member, and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last. Why does a nice guy like me keep getting thrown in jail? I have been arrested almost 50 times and spent over a year of my life locked up in various prison facilities. And I wrote a book, many books. In fact, one of them is called Why Does a Nice Guy Like Me Keep Getting Thrown in Jail? It's a theological work. answering those who say that the church should not be involved in politics or that we should retreat, I encourage you to get it. In fact, get one and give it to your pastor. Welcome back to the Voice of Resistance. Coming up, a clip from a lawmaker in Iowa that you aren't going to believe. This man has got to be insane, and he's in deep trouble right now, I promise you that. And a proposed piece of legislation from the legislature in Wyoming that tells Obama where he can put any law he wants to try and pass. All right, let's look at some possible scenarios. Obama could try and push something through the legislative process. It's not going to happen. There's just too many pro-Second Amendment members of the U.S. House of Representatives to do any meaningful theft, to commit any meaningful theft of our Second Amendment rights. He could look to the courts, but recently the courts have had two pretty significant gun rulings in favor of the Second Amendment. So that's unlikely unless one of the more conservative members dies or resigns and Obama gets to put someone else in there. But that's not the scenario that's on the table right now. So he's got the executive order. What is his executive order going to say, and what will be the repercussions? He could say, we're going to ban the importation of all foreign guns and accessories. That is highly likely and probably will be met with very little outcry. Most gun manufacturers, at least a lot of them, have facilities where they manufacture guns both in America and overseas. So that would be a little bit of window dressing. I still think that it needs to be loudly denounced. But the scenarios where real danger would be is if he were to try and say ban something, ban the sale of anything with a bore larger than a .22. He probably is going to ban certain size clips. If he were to demand a general registration of all guns, or God forbid, like they did in Australia, try and actually confiscate guns. The further down the gun control line Obama goes with his executive order, which, by the way, would only last possibly for his term, because if a Republican took it and promised that he was going to revoke that order, then it would be temporary. But nevertheless, if Obama goes down a path of gun registration, long waiting periods, filling out paperwork while you have to explain why you want a certain gun, it could be the death knell of the republic. You would start to see states talk about secession from the Union, but more fearfully, what they'll do is they'll pick on one or two easy targets, like they did with David Koresh or at Ruby Ridge, and hope that it scares the heck out of everyone else. But there will be backlash. There will be Second Amendment people in some of the Midwest states, or perhaps Wyoming or Idaho, perhaps Texas, that will shoot, they will assassinate certain public officials. Who? I don't know. But I'm making the prediction it's going to happen because there are people who won't tolerate it. And they're going to do it to send a message to the government. The death of a Supreme Court justice could allow Obama to pull off something horrific depending on who he puts on the bench. But I'm telling you this, friend, if they really do make a move on our Second Amendment rights, there will be hell to pay. And something else that they want to do right now is this. They want to flush out who their real resistance is, okay? You've got Alex Jones as the poster boy that the left wants to use. You've got thoughtful people like Larry Pratt, myself and others. You've got the NRA, who can't figure out that the Second Amendment isn't just for hunting and for self-defense, it's to stand up against tyranny in our government, all right? They're inching towards that position, but way too slowly. But the government wants to see who the real opposition is. And so what I say is this, tell them now. Let them flush us out now. We need to stand up now and say, if you demand that we do a background check on every single person purchasing a gun right now, the answer is no. We won't comply. Go to hell. We won't comply because a gun background check for every single person, your neighbor, your brother, your father, all that is a backdoor to gun registration. Because then they know who has the guns. That's the point of gun registration, to know who's got them and what they bought. So A demand that every single person have a background check is simply the back door to gun registration. And friend, that is going to produce a violent backlash. That's my prediction. I'm sticking to it. When we come back, we'll play the soundbite of an insane Iowa lawmaker and the heroic legislation being proposed in the state of Wyoming. Don't go away. We have put together what we call an online university for you. Now that's a highfalutin way of saying that we have a pretty significant library of material, books, tapes, videos that are there for you for free. Why are we doing this? Because America is desperate for new leaders, and because this material could help you to become the leader that you and God want you to be. Check it out and enjoy it. Welcome back to the program. Point of clarity, I do not want these predictions to come true, but I have to have historical and intellectual integrity if I'm going to do this show in the fear of God and for you, the viewer. All right, let's hear from a crazy man in Iowa, Representative Mulbear, who says we should take everyone's guns. Play the clip.
We cannot have big guns out here as far as these the big guns that are out here, the semi-automatics and all those. We can't have those running around out here. Those are not hunting weapons. Those, assault rifles.
So we should ban those in Iowa?
We should ban them in Iowa.
Now, if we ban them, should it be a retro act? Should it be a ban going forward where you can't buy them going forward? Or should there be some mechanism to confiscate them from people who already purchased them legally?
We need to get them off the streets illegally, and even if you have them, I think we need to start taking them. We can't have those out there, because if they're out they're just going to get circulated around to the wrong people. So those guns should not be in public's hands. They're just too big of guns.
So if there is a ban on semi-automatic rifles and somebody had purchased one legally, let's say today, and then the ban would go into effect, how do we confiscate them? What do we? I mean, who does that?
Well, either that or we're going to have to buy them back or voluntarily come get them, or if we find them on the street, there's going to have to be some kind of penalty for them.
That was Dan Mulbear, a state representative, and he's in state government in Iowa, and may he quickly lose his job. All right, got about a minute left. I want to read to you, and I'll come back to this tomorrow, but a portion of the law being proposed in Wyoming. Any official, agent, or employee of the United States government who enforces or attempts to enforce any act, order, law, statute, rule, or regulation of the United States government upon a personal firearm, a firearm accessory, or ammunition that is owned or manufactured commercially or privately in Wyoming and that remains exclusively within the borders of Wyoming shall be guilty of a felony. Upon conviction shall be subject to imprisonment for not more than 5 years and a fine of not more than $5,000 or both. I'll read more to you from this tomorrow. I'll try and read the whole law because it's so fun. It's so awesome. Basically, the Wyoming legislature is probably going to pass this. The governor will sign it. That says if Obama does something that tries to take away or in any way cause to be registered an assault weapon or any types of magazines, and a federal agent comes and tries to enforce it, they'll throw his sorry butt in jail. Well, we will continue with this series tomorrow. I want to encourage you to go to our website. Go to voiceofresistance.com and watch this entire series. Take advantage of the books and the materials that we have there that we have made available for free. We call it the online university because our goal is not to make money at this. Our goal is to make patriots and make people who love and fear God and who are willing to stand for the truth in the public square. Go to our website, avail yourself, and don't forget to tune in tomorrow. you.